the other conference that takes the other Big Ten schools, the Ohio River Valley. It kind of might seem as a hodgepodge on the whole, but when you really delve into it division by division, this conference is really cool. There's a lot of really cool rivalries in this conference. So in the northern division of the Ohio River Valley, it's the traditional teams that you're thinking of already in your mind to put here. We have Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan State, Penn State, Pittsburgh, and Syracuse. I almost call this the Great Lakes division, but North works fine too.
This is the weirdest conference.
That division is one of the best in college football.
It's a very powerful division.
Yeah,
It's
just like the SEC.
Well, you're
like the Dixieland East.
West.
Well,
or that's what I meant.
You're saying that in the manner that you think that Michigan has a chance against Ohio State?
Well, you still got Ohio State. You've got Notre Dame. You've got
Harbaugh
Michigan
can't beat
State.
Ohio State.
You've got Michigan.
Urban's got.
You've got Penn State has been very good.
Oh,
Syracuse was a top 20 team this
It's a very
season.
good division. It's a very good division.
Pittsburgh made the ACC championship game this year.
And so if there
It's kind of a joke, but I mean they did make it.
if there is a division that gets is this the first division to get 2 teams to the tournament? 3 teams to the tournament?
It's tough to know because division-wise, yes, probably because I don't think there's a third team in the Dixieland. I would say there's definitely 3 teams in the whole conference in the Dixieland, but maybe not in the division.
Every year there will be at least 3 teams in Dixieland in the
But you
conversation.
definitely have a good chance of seeing Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Michigan in the top 10 teams in the country.
in the argument or at some point in the season.
Yeah, or Penn State even at that matter. They've been a top 10 team, not last year, but 4 years before that they were.
Right. So the one that kind of looks like it doesn't fit here is Syracuse, but it really does fit because they're competing. Syracuse plays in a fun Carrier Dome. They have a really good atmosphere for that city. The city loves the orange, So they can compete, maybe not at first go into games where they're the favorite at home against Ohio State or Michigan, but they're going to play against Pittsburgh. They're going to play against Penn State. They're going to play hard against these teams and the other division teams. They're going to do just fine. I really like Pittsburgh in this division, honestly. I really like Pittsburgh in this division. I think it really connects Ohio to Penn State. I think it creates a great in-division rivalry for Penn State in their own state, I mean, how often do they play the teams in their state? The other one's Temple. We'll get to Temple. Temple didn't make it here.
I mean, they play Pittsburgh every year, I think, but
Every year.
I think
it has a trophy. There is a name for it.
They've re-established it, but they do play each other occasionally. They should play each other more. I think but it doesn't. The problem is it doesn't really benefit Penn State that much. It benefits Pitt more than anything because Pitt has been subpar.
they're an ACC
The real losers of this
opponent.
division are Michigan State and Penn State. They're going to get lost.
It's going to be tough for them to compete.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. With the very top tier, they're going to get a little lost.
There's
But
a top shelf in
Penn
this.
State has competed with Ohio State before.
I know, but I'm saying if
Even this year.
you make this into like the Royal Rumble division, which is kind of what it is. I mean, people say, like you said, this looks like a weird conference, but look at how in depth and how much conversation is being created by the possibilities within this division.
But even looking, I'm just saying as a whole, the conference is weird because of the other division. But because to me, the North Division makes a lot of sense. They're all except for Pitt and Penn State, Syracuse. They're all pretty close together.
Syracuse can be the outlier.
3 of those schools are really the only one. Like the ones the more east are kind of out there a little bit, but that makes a lot of sense. I was talking about the Southern Division and how this is even a conference that exists.
A conference, when you put the 2 divisions next to each other,
they're so far apart.
they look very different. So let's go to the South. In the South, there's Cincinnati, Kentucky, Louisville, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Marshall, and West Virginia. West Virginia belongs with these. Well, first, let's look in
Well, they
division.
got Pitt, cross division.
And let's look in division to look at how cool this can be and how much sense it makes. So the in division rivalries that we're building here. Look at this. Louisville versus Kentucky in football, guaranteed every year. It's the same thing as Iowa State. They're going to play each other, but now there's so much more possibilities as where to put the game and so many other things.
Could decide the division.
Cincinnati
Exactly.
as well.
It has actual consequences.
Actual stakes.
Same as the Cyhawk game. Now there's something on the line. Same with Marshall, West Virginia. Why is West Virginia with Iowa State, Kansas State? It's so stupid. Why are they with Texas? Why are they with Oklahoma when they could be having their trophy games, which they already have against Marshall and against against Pitt? They have a rivalry trophy with Pitt too.
Backyard brawl.
That's right.
It's one of those things where you just gotta look at yourself and say, take me home.
West Virginia.
Country roads.
But this is, the South Division of the Ohio River Valley is a backyard brawl in itself of all of these schools from the states, along Appalachia with the down in the hollow is what I thought of this division.
It's the
Moonshine Division.
It's the rednecks versus the almost Canadians.
It's Moonshine versus the Big Ten.
Maple Leafs versus Moonshine. There you go.
Okay.
Because they're almost Canadian.
But there's some really cool other rivalries here, like Cincinnati, Louisville.
They're very close to each other.
They're very close to each other geographically.
Are you trying to make Ohio State Cincinnati a rivalry, like across?
Yeah, they are an anchored rivalry.
In state, very close.
I wanted Cincinnati, Ohio State because it just made the most sense as they are each the only team in that state in this conference. Why shouldn't they be the ones playing each other every year?
Yeah, it makes sense. I could see that one work. Notre Dame, Kentucky. That one seems interesting.
I just hear people yelling at me through their phones right now about Tennessee, and I got to address it.
I was just looking at that one, and it's crazy.
I know people say
you didn't like the colors being the same, and you didn't like the far apart, but you put them both right there.
But what border rivalry?
It makes sense because to jump to that, Brandon, it's the battle for the Appalachian Mountain Range is the anchored rivalry between Syracuse and Tennessee. A whole lot of orange going on. A whole lot of orange.
I just heard Taco John's. Whole lot of Mexican going. Whole lot of orange going.
And I get that anchored rivalry doesn't make sense. But when you look at the divisions individually and then together, on the whole, it really could be cool to say this is the team that won the battle for the Appalachian Mountain Range. And some other schools will be like, hey, what about me? But you have other rivalries that make more sense, so let them have this. Because
they have nothing else.
Yeah, because Tennessee's like, you let us stay with Vanderbilt and gave us nothing else. Well, there's Louisville and Kentucky.
It's a classic Nebraska situation for
I tried.
Tennessee.
I tried my best.
Kind of.
To the one volunteer fan listening that's very upset with me and does not agree with the solution at all. If you look at the rivalries that you have, and remember, there are still 2 non-conference games where if Alabama has the balls, you can still continue your rivalry with Alabama, and you can play it in one of the first. You can play it. It's called the third Saturday in October. Isn't that what it's called? Yeah, it has a specific name.
I gotta say,
they can still do that.
I wanted to mention this when we were talking about Dixieland. Georgia and Florida still have the best name for a rivalry. It's called the world's largest cocktail party.
No,
that was originally what it was called. And they changed it, but I was like, that is a great name.
It's better change it. Oh my goodness!
So you got the backyard brawl.
Yeah.
I don't know what you would call Penn State against Marshall.
Well, the ones that were obvious, the ones that jumped out to me, obviously Ohio State, Cincinnati,
Michigan and Louisville. Sorry,
I know. See, you got to start with the obvious ones.
Okay, you're right. You're right. I interrupted.
You can't start with the randos. Okay.
Yeah.
You got to start with the obvious ones: Cincinnati, Ohio State, Pittsburgh, West Virginia, and then Marshall, Penn State. Obvious.
Yep. This one's hard to make cross or anchored rivals because all your teams are in the same state, so it makes it a little more difficult.
And so, for kind of the same reason as like we were arguing about earlier in the Great Plains Conference, Nebraska wants these teams, and me saying to you, I don't care which of these 4 teams Iowa State has an anchored rivalry with because I'm respecting the more powerful anchored rivalries of other teams and saying these are the teams left for my team. And so that's kind of where we get left, where Notre Dame's like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Notre Dame and Kentucky is an anchored rivalry. But it's kind of a border.
You're still getting Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan. Like you're getting Michigan State, Michigan. Like those rivalries are still intact. You're still
there's so many in-division rivalries that if you focus on the anchored rival, that's one game compared to their 4 games that they care about more, and you're looking at it wrong The anchored rivalry is to protect the 2 or 3 games per conference that really matter, like Washington State.
The Red River. And
the Red River rivalry as well.
It's not for everybody.
And here, the only ones that really matter are Pittsburgh, West Virginia, Marshall, Penn State, Ohio State, Cincinnati, and the rest are just fillers. And you're going to be playing these teams in your non-conference anyway. So honestly, those other ones don't really matter. That was the disclaimer. Now let's get into the anchored rivals that don't make any real sense on the surface.
Notre Dame, Kentucky.
It's kind of a border. I tried. Michigan, Louisville.
Catholics versus rednecks. You could do that.
How was I going to do one for Michigan and Michigan State? There wasn't going to be an anchored rival that you're like, oh, that's going to be cool right off the bat. No, maybe they can build something, but Michigan State doesn't care about that their anchored rival game is against Kentucky versus if it was against Tennessee or West Virginia. What they care about is Ohio State and Michigan and Notre Dame. So that's where you can't really focus on the anchored rival of this conference because, yeah, it'll look really hodgepodgey. The divisions are super cool is what's really important to remember about this.
That's the whole quote for this 3 for 3.
The divisions are super cool. Look at the Texas. Look at the Great Plains West.
I think that
where do we want the conference championship? Is that Lucas Oil?
Lucas Oil would be a good possibility.
Or
Heinz Field, maybe.
I like that
We
one.
haven't done this one yet. What if we institute the best record hosts? We haven't talked about that. So, say Ohio State has the best record.
I really feel like they would be left out if they're the only school that doesn't have a specified conference tournament or conference championship location then. Like Brandon said earlier about another conference. We're going to, wherever, like you say.
We got to go back to the U.
We're going to Pasadena.
Play Ohio State again.
You don't want to.
In Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because the one year that West Virginia wins their division, and then they got to go back to the U.
Nobody wants to play there.
Yeah. Or the horseshoe. Yeah.
I was like, why do you guys keep saying the U?
Oh, it is the horseshoe, not the U. I don't know why I keep saying
shaped
that.
like a U.
I was here for it. Yeah.
I was like, why are we talking about Miami?
The big house. You got to go to the big house for your conference championship game. Man, don't you think these Tennessee people would rather go to what's the Bengals stadium? That's pretty central
Paul
here.
Brown.
On the flip side of that, you could also be like, oh, dude, we're going to the Carrier Dome. Ew.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the game that's not going to get the away fans. But don't you even tell me right now. You look me in the eye. Anybody, DM me on Twitter. Fight me right now at Rubidoo Paul. Find me through the Loud Sports Twitter if you can't spell my name.
You can't.
Fight me on the Big Ten now versus the Ohio River Valley Conference. Tell me why it makes more sense to extend from Nebraska to the East Coast.
To New Jersey.
To teams that don't fill their own stadium for home games because they don't care because there's no rivalry between Maryland and anywhere else, and everybody beats up on Rutgers.
Whoa. Maryland and Penn State, sir.
But you hear what I'm saying, that the Big Ten as it is now is more hodgepodgey than this. This keeps the intact, purposeful, near and dear Big Ten besides Nebraska, Wisconsin, Iowa.
Whatever.
I like it, though.
I know. It's fine.
Each division on its own is really cool because that down in the holla, that south, the Moonshine division.
Moonshine versus Maple.
Hey, guys, thanks for listening to our in-depth analysis on how to restructure college football. If you want to hear all conferences, you can hear the other installments of this on the Loud Sports Podcast or the long form on the Loud Sports Podcast, or you can read it on my website at cornfedmedia.org.